a very, very good Monday morning to you. How many of you are still rubbing your eyes? My dear friends, thank you very much for joining us for today's edition of Gudday Grenada, Ringy Dingy. It is the, let's see here, it is the 28th day of October. 2K19, I'm George Grant, and yes, Pilgrims, we're going to have some fun for the next few minutes. Hazel is first, Peter is second, Sawandi third, Anthony the Riggs. Hello, Anthony. Boy, am I glad you're joining us this morning, because we're going to begin with you, believe it or not, this morning. Thank you so much. Let's take a look at the rundown here and see what sort of mischief we're going to get into over the next hour. Who else is there now? Peter Bishop. Yeah, he's chiming in this morning. He's in Long Island. At least he's told us where he is this morning. Good to see you, Pedro. But dear friends, how many of you remember the days of WIBS, bush tea? How many of you drank bush tea? A lot? Yeah. And what about kerosene lamps? You remember those lamps we had back in the old days, and on the chimney it said "Home, Sweet Home"? Yeah. We're going to step back in time this morning with Anthony the Riggs, as we do from time to time, and it's thoroughly entertaining, I promise you. So make sure you're settled in and ready for a little reminiscing, if you will. Then, let me say this. You know that Friday was a holiday, and therefore, there was no GIS report or no national report, I beg your pardon, from the Government Information Service. As a result, if I were to run Thursday's edition of the National Report, it doesn't make any sense, really. You're talking, what, 4 days or whatever? So we're going to replace the National Report this morning with an Inspirational. This is a little video. I'm sure many of you have heard this name, Wintley Phipps. We'll tell you a bit more about him in just a wee bit. And then, as we have for the past few Mondays, we're going to bring you this week's Fiscal Alert. What's that about? Well, we've got 3 sisters. I understand that only 2 may show up this morning, but 3 sisters, the Bain sisters, Laurel Bain and Gemma Bain Thomas, are the ones whom I'm expecting to see this morning. And the third one is Janet Bain. But I understand she's a medical doctor, and she may have something else to attend to this morning, so she's not going to be able to join us. However, Laurel and Gemma should be with us. And so I hope you got your little notebook handy to make some notes, as they try to make us a little bit more fiscally aware. Does that make sense? Fiscally aware? They're trying to teach us a little bit about economics. Laurel, by the way, is an economist who, at one time, worked with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So this lady knows what she's talking about. So that's your rundown for this morning. Kipling sending his blessings to everyone. Osmond Lewis and Gigi Dominique. Hello, Gigi Dominique. Have we seen Gigi before? I don't remember. Anyway, Gigi Dominique is with us. And there's Fitzroy Adams says, let's join hands and give God thanks for waking us up this morning. Thank God for life. Thank you, Lord, for life. We got so much to be grateful for, Fitzroy, and I thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so let's get into a little piece here with Mr. Anthony the Riggs. It's 5 minutes after the hour. He's going to take us on a little journey back in time.
Now, I grew up in Grenada with a radio station called WIBS. Windward Island Broadcasting Service. But that station was so powerful, people used to listen to it in Trinidad and many other places. WIBS used to broadcast to the United Kingdom in all kinds of meter bands. They're the words they used to use, meter bands. The announcers told us so. But the meaning of meter bands and GMT, well, that wasn't so important to us. We listened while we ate our bakes and we fish cake, and we drank our bush tea. So we listened to the news, and I can still hear the announcer's voice. This is the Windward Highlands Broadcasting Service. The news is read by Jerry Romaine. Now the radio station used to sign off early. In those days, 9 o'clock was dark night, and all children had to find their beds. Things change. Fireflies used to buzz around kerosene lamps, boy, like the crazy. Now there was something very sentimental about the kerosene lamp. The words, "Home Sweet Home," were written on the lampshade, and those words made us feel proud that we had a home. There was an occasion when a big moth came in the house, boy, and he danced around the kerosene lamp. Everybody ran and hid below the bed. But by 9 o'clock, WIBS don't bring the BBC News from England and a program called Sports Roundup. After that, 2 night hymns were played for us to make us sleep. We stayed all the way in Grenada and heard the chimes of Big Ben in England. We listened to Big Ben on the radio while the crapper made music in the logo stool behind the house. So we were getting the best of both worlds. But by 9 o'clock, we had placed our gym boots in a spot where no one could have smelled them. Because them gym boots, them punkasal and them boys, they were not smelling like sweet perfume. So the sports roundup program was very, very interesting. We got the scores of the latest football games, and we got to know how Lester Piggott was a jockey. We got to know how we did in the horse races. We listened to the BBC announcer, and he gave the football scores. Manchester United 5, Chelsea 2, Liverpool 1, Arsenal 0, Manchester City 3, Leeds 0. Then we got the scores from the Scottish League. Motherwell 1, Dundee 0, Dumbarton 2, Queen of the South 0. So we are told about the football prowess of Bobby Charlton and George Best, and we are aware of our own football scores. So we used to go to the park and see the games. My friend Depaul used to keep me abreast of the football scores. St. John Sports 5, Autumns 2, Hurricanes 2, Dauntless 1, 100 0, Carnage 2. We love the cricket commentaries that came from WIBS WIBS brought to us. And we love listening to John Allott, Roy Lawrence, Tony Cozier describe the fantastic cricket game played at Old Trafford and Lords. Many of us became good English students by listening to the cricket commentators. They were very, very good. So then we went to bed with our big smiles on our faces. The grown people took in the news, but while we slept, they sometimes went to dance. In those days, one never said they're going to party. We go to dance. People went to dance, and the gentlemen used to ask the ladies, could I have this dance? Somebody should take off their hat, back then. It was not unusual for them to make a slight bow and extend a hand as they asked the question. It was uncouth to grab a woman, just grab a woman and pull her on the floor. But you can't do that. Grenada Beach Hotel and Aquatic Club were big dance spots during the 50s and 60s. People danced close to the beach and they felt the sea breeze anytime they stepped outside. Back then, men and women used to dress to kill, boy, and they attended dance and dressed up in the nice dandan. It's amazing how the form of dress has changed over the years. Back in time, men wore jacket tie to dance. Some men were fond of the bow tie. Many of them wore stingy brim hat, another called it top hat, and shiny pointed tip shoes on their feet. Women attired in the well-tailored dresses that reach the knees. By the 70s now, the miniskirts they call boy, and older folks they frowned at the young women who wore the short skirts, miniskirts and pom-pom shorts. The boys they discussed greater at the hot pants the woman became fond of wearing. People used to dress up, man. All year's night, big party. By the 70s, men decked off in the pants made the crimpling cloth match with the Terraline shorts and the platform shoes. The gunmud pants or the narrow bottom pants were replaced by the bell bottom pants. The platform shoes, yes, that became popular. Tall friend of mine called Oliver, well, he wore a platform. I don't know why that man's so tall wearing platform shoes. He get taller. He resembled a lamppost. When we became men and women, we went to the popular dance spots like BBC, Clancy Island, the Nurses Hostel, where the nurses stayed, and Lansden. Dances were also held in places like Bain Hall in Grenville, St. Andrew, and even the Anglican school there. There were the days of the big brass bands and combos, many of them all over Grenada. Even the teenage had a musical band called Teenage Thrillers. It was a blissful feeling to dance to the music of Black Experience, Moss International Rhythm Riders, Magnificent Six harmony with brass. It was refreshing to inhale the cool breeze at Clancy Island nightclub. While the saxophone sounded in the night, it was exciting to listen to the captivating song of Brooke, the music man from Birch Grove. There was an occasion when a few of my friends went to BBC. As soon as we entered, boy, the music was heard, the sound of the calypsonian and the mighty sparrow. My partner James held on to a woman and he started to whine to the song. Oh, you're charming, so like you're feeling hot or what? James found the spot where he was dancing was too small and he was getting hotter than the song. So he headed for the sun below an almond tree on the outside. And when he went back inside, the Eagles' hit song, Hotel California, was playing. Our days were full of fun and listening to the BBC radio and dancing to the music at the BBC nightclub. Then WIBS was disbanded and Radio Grenada took its place. We listened to the announcer called Jeffrey Ed making all kind of remarks on the radio. He used to talk about oil dung and other foods. Good announcer. He usually gave a big shout out to the people who were cooking manako in Tempe. Once I heard him tell the fellas that he was passing by a road for oil dung, Grenada's national dish. He spoke of the Jackson 5, proclaiming that they were all 5 brothers. They emphasized they were 5 boys also. The listeners smiled. Then the announcer Crow came on, boy. I don't know where Crow got that deep, heavy voice from. Crow took it time. He took time. It's time to pronounce every word. Then he left the radio station and became a politician, a writer, and a prophet. Every time I meet him in Grenada, he has a new prophecy to tell me about. Well, he saw Hurricane Ivan long before Hurricane Ivan hit Grenada. Now listening to Radio Grenada was real fun. A popular program was the evening request program. A man from Belmont used to call in, but he called in all the time. I don't know how the announcer can get that ready. You love to hear his name on the radio. People used to call the program and send requests to the loving mother, the father in Canada, the dear friend aunt, or the aunt in America. And if them people were in the people in the snow paying attention to Radio Grenada. The request took the following pattern. Good evening. This is Mitchell from Mount Morris. I want to send a request to Uncle Harry in Belmont. Also, Mimi in the road, Aunt Patrice in Canada, my Uncle George in Brooklyn, my loving boyfriend Victor in Guave, my friend Tuntun who's recovering from those boils. And I want to hear the song As Usual. A bus driver, he loved that song so much he called his bus on As Usual. And after the requested song was played, a woman from Tempe called the radio station. She wanted the DJ to play the reggae song, Ride Your Donkey. She said she wanted it to be played. I wanted to play for my own listening pleasure. And people did not wait for anyone to request songs for them. They asked for songs to be played for their own listening pleasure. Remembering the days, Anthony Wendell the Rakes.
Remembering the Days with Mr. Anthony the Rakes. Nice piece, Anthony. Thank you very much. I remember WIBS very, very, very well. Thanks for bringing back that memory. But dear friends, while you were listening to Anthony, we did establish a couple of things. First of all, we have never met Gigi Dominique, okay? So in that case, I want to repeat my welcome to Gigi. And the second thing we learned is that she is in Paris. You know, Gigi, just let me say this. I have never been to Paris. But it's some place that I'd really like to visit sometime. And I am a big fan of French cuisine. Actually, the only thing I probably like more about the French than their cuisine is their language. I think, you know, listening to the French speak, I find it so romantic. It's a very, very romantic language. And for romanticists like yours truly, yeah, I'm in my element when I hear the French speaking. It's kind of weird because how could you be such a romanticist and never been married, not even dating? These things do happen. Pilgrims, so welcome, Gigi. Anthea is saying good morning from a foggy Atlanta. Oh, Anthea. And let's see here. John is also saying good morning from an overcast number 1, meaning it's overcast in Carriacou this morning. It's not overcast down here. We have a lot of sunshine, but pretty much high cloud. Arthur Langine is saying good morning, wishing everybody a happy Monday. Gigi says, come now. One of these days. As soon as my friends like Mags and Arthur and John and all these people can afford it, they'll send me up there to meet you, Gigi. And if you ever come on down this way, please say hi to us. Okay, now, I'm sure that many of you have heard the name Wintley Phipps, Phipps. Mr. Phipps was born in Trinidad on January 7th, 1955. He's a vocal artist, vocalist, and founder of the U.S. Dream Academy, as well as a publishing company and a recording company. This gentleman has a booming bass voice, usually singing inspirational or gospel music. He has performed for several American presidents, including Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. All right? In a visit to his homeland some time ago, he released a video in which he spoke about his early days. And this is what's probably going to jump out at you. His relationship with a lady you all know, Oprah Winfrey. Check this out.
Well, my name is Wintley Phipps, and my mother gave me that name in 1955. I tell people she must have been very astute because she gave me the most Google-friendly name. You put my name in Google and nobody else comes up. But I was born in San Fernando, at San Fernando General Hospital, and grew up in Pitibouk. I went to Baratow EC. I was born to a little troubled home, and so I used to get away from my parents' troubles. I had a little red tricycle, and I'd go in the backyard of my house, turn the tricycle on its side, and use one of the back side wheels as a steering wheel. And I would sit there for hours, and I would dream that I was flying to faraway places in the world and meeting important people when I was 5 and 6, 7 years old. I had a blessing. I had an opportunity when I was about 7 or 8 years old to sing a solo on Antique, which was a long time ago, but I remember the feeling that I had hearing my voice coming over the radio in Trinidad as a little boy. It was a flash of a sense of destiny. I just held it in my heart, but I really didn't know what it would portend or what it would mean. At the age of 10, we moved to Montreal, Canada. That's where I grew up. My father used to take us to the airport to say goodbye to people who were going back to Trinidad. And I'd look around, walking around the airport, I'd look around to see if anybody was looking, and I'd grab a handful of the luggage tags, and I would stuff them in my pocket and go home and get a pencil and print my name, Wintley Phipps, Flight 393 London, Flight 676 Paris, just dreaming. And at the age of 16, 15 years old or so, my voice changed, and I had this voice that is a basso, bass baritone sound coming out of my throat since I was 15 years old. And at the age of 16, I dedicated my life to God, and I dedicated this voice to be used only to uplift and inspire people. And it has been an amazing ride for this little boy from Trinidad. There's nowhere in the world that I could have ever wanted to go that I haven't gone, and every continent of the world many times over. I was actually in the crowd that welcomed Nelson Mandela when he came out of prison. I was the only soloist at Diana Ross's wedding in Switzerland. I've got about 26 recorded albums and a couple of Grammy nominations, and done duets with people like Patti LaBelle, and I've just had an amazing experience. I've been blessed to sing for the last 6 presidents of the United States of America, and sang at the last 2 inaugurations of President Barack Obama. But Trinidad is where I'm from. Trinidad is my foundation. Trinidad is my roots. I don't know where this voice came from, whether it was too much dasheen or too much mangoes or whatever the case may be, but it's a unique gift from God. If you go to YouTube and put in my name, Wintley Phipps, and put in Amazing Grace, you'll get a chance to see a little bit of this unusual gift that God has given to me. I'm back in Trinidad this weekend to do a concert at the Hyatt Regency Hotel downtown in Port of Spain. It's at 8 o'clock Saturday night, and we're inviting as many people who can come to make sure you purchase your tickets. They'll be able to give you information as to exactly where to go or how to get and obtain a ticket to come. It's going to be filled with some other wonderful artists, but the most important thing is, if you're searching for a sense of that vision, that dream, that can-do spirit that God has placed in you, you want to catch a glimpse of what God's been dreaming for your life, it will be a great investment of your time and resources to come on out 8 o'clock Saturday night at the Hyatt Regency. and first of all, bask in this beautiful sense of God's presence, which I know you will sense. It'll be convicting, it'll be comforting, it'll be strengthening. And I believe that God's going to give you a glimpse of what He has been dreaming for you. And I can tell you, that changes your life completely. When you catch a glimpse of the dream that God has been dreaming for you, it changes everything. About 35 years ago, I was singing in Baltimore, Maryland. I came down off the platform. A young lady was standing there. She tapped me on the shoulder, said, "Excuse me, sir, I just heard you sing, and I feel like I can talk to you. Do you have time to talk to me?" I said, "Sure." So she came by our home. We talked together, encouraged her. I'm a person of faith, so we prayed together. And after praying with her, I looked at her and I said, "You know, before you go, I don't know why, but God has impressed me to tell you He's going to bless you and give you an opportunity to speak to millions of people." She said, "No, you think God would do that for me?" And it was Oprah Winfrey. And that's how we met all those years ago. And I have been honored and blessed to have her friendship for all of those years. All because I learned a lesson early, and that is you treat all people with respect when you don't know who they are, where they're going, or what they can do for you one day. The scriptures say you entertain angels and aren't even aware of it. And so it has been my honor to really be a very important influence in her life, as she attests to. If you just Google it and go on YouTube, you'll hear what she has to say. Yes, we continue to have a personal relationship. As a matter of fact, I told her that I was coming to Trinidad, and she said, have a lot of fun. So I'm trying to do that while I'm working. And she's just a really wonderful, wonderful friend who has been a great supporter of my ministry. One of the ministries that I started in America is called the U.S. Dream Academy. We provide tutoring and mentoring after school to children whose parents are in prison in America. Because what we found was that children whose family members and whose parents are involved in the criminal justice system are most likely to follow those parents into the criminal justice system. In other words, about 60 to 70% of all children in America who end up in prison come from the children of those who are in prison now. And so we began a work almost 20 years ago where we provide tutoring and mentoring after school for children whose parents are incarcerated and children falling behind in school. And fast forward, little did I know that young lady that I met over 35 years ago, who was only making $25,000 US a year at her job, that I was able to encourage, would become the richest black woman on planet Earth. And so just when I needed resources to help start and run and this work that I do for children and prisoners, that she would be the greatest supporter that I have. For example, we have a fundraising dinner every year in America, where in Washington, D.C. actually, where we raise about $1 million a year at the dinner. 2008 was a pretty tough fundraising year. The economy collapsed, you may remember, and a lot of charities were struggling. Well, at the dinner that year, because we needed it, I set the goal to reach at 1.3 million. And 7 days before the dinner, I was sitting at about 800,000 that I'd raised from individuals and corporations, but I needed a $500,000 miracle to get to this goal. So I'm praying. 2 days later, I got a call from Oprah Winfrey's assistant saying Miss Winfrey just boarded her jet to go to see her school in South Africa. And I was blessed to speak and sing at the opening of her school in South Africa. And she said, the lady said, Miss Winfrey left a FedEx package for you. Where should I send it? I said, well, send it to the corporate office. She said, well, there's a special way she wants you to open it. I said, well, then send it to my home. I got home, my wife handed me this beautifully wrapped box. And when I opened it up, there was a handwritten note from her thanking me for my ministry in her life, for my prophetic words of wisdom, for my kindness. She was so generous in her words. But I saw an envelope. And when I opened the envelope, she had put in a check for 1.2 million US dollars. And behind that envelope, I saw another envelope dated January 1, 2009, and I opened it, and it had another check for $1.2 million. And behind that envelope, I saw another envelope, and I opened it up. It had another check for $1.3 million. So she sent almost $4 million in 3 envelopes. And then she called me from South Africa. Did you get it? I said, oh, thank you so much. And then she emailed me, and she said, you know, I love giving, and I love making it fun. She said, I considered sending you a FedEx envelope 3 days in succession. So Monday you would get the first check, Tuesday the second check, Wednesday the third. She said, but I figured by the 4th day, you would be chasing the FedEx man down. And that's why I sent them all together. But again, it has been an amazing ride for this little boy who, growing up in the bush, with a tricycle on his side, dreaming that one day he may be able to travel the world, meet important people, and to see that dream realized in my life. And I want to encourage other young people on this island that the God that we love is the ultimate dreamer. And when he dreams, planets are born. When he dreams, stars twinkle in the sky. And when he dreams, he also dreams about every one of you, every one of these children. And the most amazing thing I have found in my life is to catch a glimpse of the dream that God has been dreaming for you. So come on out on Saturday night at the Hyatt Regency Hotel at 8 o'clock, and I am sure that you will be not only inspired and motivated, but you will connect with the dream that God's been dreaming for you. It can be done.
All righty, nice piece, isn't it? Very, very inspirational, if you will. Wintley Phipps. Love to meet that man someday. Very, very accomplished gospel singer. By the way, Jean Pasco was listening, and she said, it is so good listening to Mr. Phipps. Yeah, glad you appreciated that. And just scrolling back here a little bit, Susan Robinson is also with us this morning, and she said she enjoyed Mr. D. Riggs's flashback. Anthony, you heard that? And she goes on to say here that she is in this lovely sunny isle enjoying my visit home. Well, Susan, I certainly hope that when you get back to wherever you've come from, you'll continue joining us here. Sunday, pretty much every day at 9 o'clock, except Saturday, okay? Sunday mornings with George Grant, or Sundays with George Grant, Sunday mornings, and weekdays, Gudday Grenada. And then she also says here that she looked forward to listening to Auntie Kay on Sunday at 2 o'clock. You remember that, girl? Yeah, my brother and my 2 sisters, we'd sit on the front steps of our house and listen to Auntie Kay on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. I will never forget those days. Alrighty, folks, it's now, let's see here, coming up on 25 minutes away from the hour. And I think it's time. Hold on. Jean Pascal says, hold on. Sean has just chimed in. He says he's a little bit late. Later than never. Better late than never. Peter Bishop also enjoyed that piece we played by Wintley Phipps. Now, pilgrims. Let us, let me see here if we can get these. Where are they? Huh? Hey, yeah. Let me see if we can get the Bain sisters on here. I'm seeing one of them. I'm seeing Gemma, but let's see if we can bring up the others. Yeah, there they go. Good morning, ladies, and how are you?
Good morning, George. I am
Good morning,
fine.
George.
At the top left of your screen,
Nice seeing you again, George.
it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. At the top left of your screen is Laurel Bain, the economist. And here is our former cabinet secretary, Gemma Bain, at the bottom. And ladies and gentlemen, ladies, I'm very curious about what you've got up your sleeve this morning. Tell us, Laurel. Oh, by the way, where's our friend Janice this morning?
Dr. Janice this morning is engaged in providing medical services. She may try to join us on Facebook if circumstances allow.
Okay, great. So what have you got up your sleeve this morning, my friend?
Yes, I just want to say good day and welcome to all today's program, Fiscal Alert, where we share knowledge and experience. Today we continue under the theme Economic Management with Fiscal Policy. However, I just want to recap some of what we said last week. And before we go into the topic of the role of fiscal policy in terms of stabilization of the economy. Last week we concluded that fiscal sustainability is important and fiscal transparency is critical. I referred to the Fiscal Responsibility Act and indicated that fiscal targets are important guidelines to fiscal policy, but such targets should be designed to allow flexibility in managing the public finances to achieve growth and development. I also indicated that there is a need to include the covered entity in the monitoring of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. However, consideration should also be given to a technical team to examine the fiscal performance on a quarterly basis in the context of the economic environment and report quarterly. Additionally, I mentioned that because the Fiscal Responsibility Act is such a technical document, consideration should also be given to an educational component so that the citizens are aware of the provisions of the Act and their implications. So on that note, I will go into the theme for today, which is the role of fiscal policy in stabilizing the economy.
But Laurel, before you proceed, I wish for us to revisit a comment made by one of the viewers last week when he said that the Fiscal Responsibility Act was being used conveniently, for example, in wage negotiations. Could you elaborate on the use of the Fiscal Responsibility Act?
Okay. Now, as I would have mentioned previously, there is a monitoring mechanism within the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The binding constraint here is the expenditure rule, which requires that the growth in the primary balance should not be more than 2% in real terms. And the Oversight Committee will monitor government's adherence to that target. However, within that target, the expenditure components within the primary balance, and these are wages and salaries, purchases of goods and services, transfers, and which includes pension, and some component of capital goods. The government has discretion in terms of which category of expenditure the growth will be in any particular time. For example, let us assume, as we did, the rate of inflation is 1%, and the expected real growth in expenditure is 3%. The government could decide, use its discretionary decision, to channel all these expenditure into the purchase of goods and services, and will not be breaching the fiscal targets. Or it might channel all the expenditures to transfers and pensions and remain within the fiscal target. So within that target, although remaining into the target, the government could use its discretion and allocate the growth in expenditure. And this may be the cause for the comments.
Okay. John on the Facebook is asking you whether you would say that Grenada's Fiscal Responsibility Act is transparent.
I would say the it is transparent, it is detailed, and it defines a variable. It includes provisions for when the act will be suspended, how you will recover, and monitoring. I think one of my concerns is the technical nature of the act and the engagement maybe of partners or economic agents in the development of the act and ensuring that they understand the act and its implication. And this engagement with the public economic citizens should take place prior to the commencement of the act to ensure that both parties, the government who is responsible for managing the finances and the economy, and the economic citizens who are affected by the act are taken into consideration, and the act is balanced in both categories, the government and the citizens. But it is detailed, but it is also technical. So therefore,
Okay.
on that note, I can go on to the issue of the stabilization of the economy. And in terms of the stabilization of the economy, I will refer back to the question that came in last week on the issue of the trade war and the impact on our small economies and what can be done. In terms of the trade war, I mentioned the immediate effect is inflationary. It increases production costs, induces uncertainty, and eventually a decline in economic activity. And this is because we are described as small, open, vulnerable economies. We are small both in terms of our size and our population. We are open because we import most of what we consume. We depend heavily on tourism. We receive funds or resources from family and friends abroad, which we define as remittances, and we depend on foreign direct investment. In addition, we are vulnerable to natural disasters. So to go through the issue of the stabilization of the economy, let us travel through the period of 2000. In 2000, the economy expanded by about 5%. In the following year, there was a dip in the economy and the economy contracted. And this contraction was due to the September 11 events in the US and its adverse impact on tourism, which affected the economy. The economy then recovered in the following year, 2003, but it dipped again in 2004. And this time, it was because of the natural disaster, Hurricane Ivan. So economic activity contracted. The economy grew again, influenced by the reconstruction from Hurricane Ivan. And over the following 2 to 3 years, the economy on average grew. And it was stimulated by the continued recovery, and we were preparing for World Cup cricket. However, in 2008-9, particularly in 2008, we had the onset of the economic and financial crisis. And by 2009, the economy dipped again, economy declined. And here, external factor due to the impact on tourism, our estimated fall in remittances, and the slow or no growth in foreign direct investment. And the economy remained at this level for about 2 to 3 years in a depressed condition. And it was by 2011 that the economy began to recover again and growth resumed in 2012. Thereafter, growth continued in 2013 and has continued throughout. influenced primarily by favorable external conditions and activities associated with inflows from the Citizen by Investment program. What we observed is that during the 2000s, the economy went through periods of contraction and growth. The role of fiscal policy in this scenario is basically to cushion the effect of declines in activity and ensure that there is not too much accelerated growth. The person who posed the question on Facebook indicated, what can we do? In my opinion, I have identified maybe 3 approaches in terms of addressing or cushioning the effect of these wide fluctuations in economic activity. I must say, it is extremely difficult or even impossible to insulate the small economies from these external factors. However, what fiscal policies attempt to do is to cushion the effect.
Laurel, John on Facebook is again asking, doesn't the reallocation of monies have to be public knowledge?
Well, okay. Generally, and what is recommended, before the budget is being prepared, and I'm sure there are consultations in Grenada, it could be possible to prepare what we call a budget strategy and use as the basis for consultation so that the public will be aware of the allocation of resources. In addition, the presentation of the budget gives the indication of the allocation of the budget. And I must say here that there are also systems to ensure that the allocated expenditure are properly spent. And Gemma, you can maybe come in here because of your acquaintance with the system to kind of give us an enlightenment as to some of the systems to ensure that budgetary or the allocation of expenditure are spent as agreed in the estimates of revenue and expenditure.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to share. We know that the public finances are managed within a framework or system. We have the Constitution, we have the laws of the land, statutory rules and orders, we have the budget, we have cabinet decisions. In the Constitution, there is a section which is designated specifically to finances, Chapter 5 of the Constitution. Then we have organizational structures within the public service, with ministers and senior public officers being responsible for the manner in which monies allocated are spent. They must be used in an authorized, transparent, and efficient manner. There's also the Director of Audit, who by the Constitution is and audit the various ministries and departments to ensure that public funds are properly spent. The Director of Audit presents his or her report to the Parliament. In Parliament, there is a Public Accounts Committee which reviews the audit reports and make recommendations to Parliament. However, we must note that in 2015, along the same time that the Fiscal Responsibility Act was presented to Parliament, there was a new Public Finance Management Act, number 17 of 2015. That act describes the roles and responsibilities of the Minister, the Permanent Secretary in Finance, and accountable officers. These accountable officers are the permanent secretaries and heads of department, which the law entrusts with the responsibility of ensuring that monies are spent in the proper manner. So all of these are some of the systems or the structures within which public finances are managed.
Thanks, Gemma. I just want to indicate here that in terms of the preparation of the legislation, one of the important, and I would have mentioned it earlier, one of the important consideration is the consultation during the process to ensure that both sides, the citizens or the economic agents, and the government are fairly represented in the Act and there are no imbalances in the Act. So that is very critical. Are there
So
only
it,
any other?
so it means, Laurel, that citizens need to acquaint themselves with the Public Finance Management Act as well as the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Yes, they need to. I agree. Any other
So
questions?
just to go back a little on the Fiscal Responsibility Act, could you enlighten us on how the targets were determined and whether or not it takes into consideration the development needs of the country?
Okay. Referring back to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, it does not indicate how the targets were determined. However, it indicates how to arrive at the targets. One of the main targets that kind of informs the foundation to the Fiscal Responsibility Act is ensuring debt sustainability. And there is constant argument as to at what level should we pitch the debt to GDP ratio. And again, as I encourage consultation, the level will depend on, technical analysis, but also on consultation. I will just indicate that the debt to GDP ratio differs among countries. And in earlier presentation, like in the West African Economic Union, it is 70%. In the European Union, it is 60%. In the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, of which Grenada is a member, the target is 60%. And in Grenada, it is 55%. But this is based on generally technical analysis, but it should be informed by consultation, taking into consideration the state of the economy, the development agenda, and then you pitch the debt to GDP ratio, which will inform the other targets. I will resume now to the stabilization role of the fiscal policy and what can be done. And here I said I would identify 3 areas. One, in terms of cushioning the effect, fiscal policy would require that the authorities save during periods of prosperity so that expenditure could be increased during periods of depression. And the onus, if we say the responsibility is on the government, because during periods of depression, it is unlikely or not easy for the private sector to take that initiative. So one component of expenditure that could be targeted during periods of depression is your capital expenditure, which will allow for some activities to take place. In addition, and depending on the needs of the country and the discretion of the authorities, some social spending in terms of the social welfare programs could also be targeted. However, to have savings to spend during periods of depression, the economic base must be strong during the periods of prosperity. It means that we must have strong in terms of our economic pillars, agriculture sector, tourism sector, and also consideration should be given to how we diversify within these sectors in order to withstand in some of the external shocks. So for agriculture, we may focus on increasing production, processing. In tourism, can we diversify further? Health and wellness tourism. And this must be supported by adequate infrastructure, not forgetting the use of technology and the development of our people. And in development of our people, the education system must support developing the productive sector, not forgetting the health is the wealth of our nation. And finally, at the end of the financial crisis around 2010, the small economies of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union signed the revised Treaty of Basque, establishing the OECS Economic Union. This revised treaty could be examined for areas of cooperation to strengthen the production base so that we become strong economies, and also for functional cooperation so we can reduce the overhead costs of government so that we have benefits to the population, and try as much to insulate some of the negative impact of these external factors on the economy. I will mention again, it's difficult, but fiscal policy requires the management so that we can insulate some of these impacts. In terms of the impact and the performance of the economy, I mentioned the gross domestic product or the growth rate being affected by these variables. If there are no questions on Facebook, I just want to indicate, are there any other questions I need to address on Facebook before I indicate that?
There's one question. John was again asking who appoints the director of audit. Now, I will respond. It's a constitutional position appointed by the Governor General on the recommendation of the Public Service Commission. But as with all particular offices, there must be the concurrence of the Prime Minister. So this is an answer to John. So as we wind down, Laurel, there are no more questions on Facebook at this point in time.
Okay, so here I will indicate that throughout our discussions, we have been using our GDP growth. However, I have indicated that the objective of fiscal policy is growth and development. I want our team to join us next week when we look at the issue of growth and development and what these mean to the citizens. So join us.
There was just one comment that came in, Laurel, from Cassandra about the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which I will just read as you prepare to close. It says the Fiscal Responsibility Act exempts from the fiscal rules and targets, reference section 12, grants for financing of capital expenditures and associated expenditures, and the National Transformation Fund, which is financed by the Citizenship by Investment Program. What were the justifications for said clause? Now, I think this will require some details, so maybe we can keep it in view and respond as we begin the program next week.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And I note that, yes, they are exempt. The Fiscal Responsibility Act indicated that it was exempt, but I didn't see a reason. But I will look at it again and see, at a micro level. And thanks for
Then Juliet is saying, how often does the Public Accounts Committee meet?
Gemma, do you know how often they meet? If not, we'll have to find out and get back on that question.
We will have to get back on that question. And then Otto Langine says, morning, Ms. Bain. You are giving us some very good information. Thanks much. So with George's permission, we will answer 2 questions next week because I know time is against us.
Well,
okay, so
as far as I'm concerned, you guys have time, but it seems to me that there is some information that you're actually going to have to look up.
I hear George.
Okay. Well, I just want to go back to the Public Accounts Committee because the Public Accounts Committee is a committee of Parliament. And generally in the Parliament, the leader of the opposition would chair that Public Accounts Committee. But because of our unique situation in Grenada, without a leader of the opposition, I think there was a construct made up of some senators and some parliamentarians for the Public Accounts Committee. But I personally have not heard of that committee meeting in recent times. So I'm not certain how often they meet and how effective they are.
Mm-hmm. And I would say there are strong systems in terms of for the management of the public finances. However, the issue sometimes are the working of the system. And the working of the system depends on each and everyone within the system. And that might be where we have some deficiencies in terms of the working of the system. Any further comments?
There's another comment from Prince Moses. He says,
I'm not sure that,
as we need to
Gemma, I'm not sure that pertains to what we're talking about this morning, and I would appreciate it if we could stick to the issues at hand. But there's a comment there, or two comments, one from Margaret and one from John. You may want to take those on. Gemma?
I did not hear you clearly, George. Could you just repeat?
No, what I was saying is that what Prince Moses has posted there, I think it's totally irrelevant to what we're talking about. But there are a couple of comments, one from Margaret and one from John, and I was suggesting that you take a look at those.
All right. Okay. So Margaret Francis is saying, good question, Cassandra. If they're exempt, then what is the point of the act? Major loophole for corruption. And John agrees with Margaret in saying a self-made loophole. That is in the exemption of the Transformation Fund and so from the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Right. And that's why I said earlier on that in terms of the act, it is important that there are consultations to ensure that the act is not imbalanced in terms of one component or one section, the citizens and the management of the finances. And hence, you need intensive consultation in the preparation before the passage of the act. But once it is passed, then it becomes a law to which, it could be used in terms of the management of the public finances.
Okay, Margaret, hope that answers your question, and you too, John. Okay, ladies.
Is that okay?
Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next week we will look at issue of growth and development, and so join us next week on that issue, because knowledge is power. Experience is the greatest teacher. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you, viewers.
Good to see you, ladies. We'll see you next Monday, God willing. Take care.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply departments and Food Fair supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's Hardware, Food Fair supermarkets, and the Grenadian General Insurance, an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan.
Hey, what? I just came from the land and this sign here caught my eye. What's that sign about?
Someone must have asked Grenlec to move a pole. But you know, there's no space reserved on the side of the road for planting poles. So Grenlec has to get permission from landowners, and that can take a lot of time.
Oh. Grenlec asked me to help them contact my neighbor Ben about planting a pole on his land. But Ben passed away. His children own the land, but they all live abroad.
That's why Grenlec needs customers to inform them in writing at least 3 months in advance.
3 months? All that?
It seems like a lot, but think about the time it will take for Grenlec to find and get permission from all of Ben's children. And sometimes moving one pole requires you to move the pole before, the one after, plus the wires that support them on the ground. That means even more landowners to find and get permission from. Then Grenlec needs to schedule their teams and notify customers about any power outages.
Well, I need the pole on the farm moved, so I'm going to write Grenlec a letter now.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, just a couple of quick footnotes that came in here regarding the conversation we were having a few minutes ago. First of all, John says consultations with the public are never, ever listened to, but then they can tick the consulted box. We hear you, John. Cassandra Mitchell says, re the management of public finances, it is important to note that the upcoming 2020 budget is aligned to the National Sustainable Development Plan. Are we as a people asking why? Cassandra, hopefully, our guest will try to answer that for you next week. 7 minutes after the hour, Pilgrims, just about time to pull the curtain down on today's edition of Gudday Grenada. However, we ain't going nowhere without a parting word from the Holy Scriptures. Today, these words come to you from the book of Mark, Mark chapter 16, verses 14 to 18. Later, Jesus appeared to the 11 as they were eating. He rebuked them for their lack of faith and their stubborn refusal to believe those who had seen him after he had risen. He said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. But whoever does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name, they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands. And when they drink deadly poison, it will not hurt them. They will place their hands on the sick, and they will get well." Mark 16, verses 14 to 18. And on that note, my dear friends, this is where we're going to pull the curtain down on this Monday morning edition of Gudday Grenada. Start of a brand new week, which I hope will be productive, enjoyable, and a blessing to you and this country. Gemma Bain Thomas says here, thanks everyone for viewing and listening. It is indeed an educational journey. It is, Gems. Take note of the comments that came in after you guys bade us farewell. And you can respond to those next week. Okay, Pilgrims, here we go. Georgie Porgy. Yeah, he had brekkie this morning, so he can't tell you he's going to feed his face. He'd be lying, eh? But he's got a lot of work to do today. So please be sure to join us. And by the way, tomorrow morning, Ray will not be with us. You know, Ray Roberts joins us every Tuesday morning at 9:30. Got a note from him this morning that he's traveling. He's leaving the island at about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. so he's not going to be with us. But we will have some very interesting stuff for you. God bless you.